Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. Today I'm going over the new FAQs and Errata Kill Team that were released yesterday. And why am I going over them today? Because I'm very behind on a lot of stuff. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the changes, the video as a whole, anything else as well. And if you want, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But let's go over the new FAQs and Erratas. So actually, a few things have been updated. So you've got the core rules, Corsair, Voidscarred, Commandos, Legionary, Novitiates, Veteran Guardsmen, Wyrmblade, and Blooded, as well as the Phobos strike team. Nothing else for anything else. So let's leave the core rules for last, because there's some spicy stuff. So let's go into the designer's commentary for the Phobos. So this is all new stuff. Remember, if it's a previous article, then like an asterisk will show the new changes. But the first one is, can the Incurser marksman track target? If the enemy option is not capacitated or resolved, finished activation, what does it mean? Your opponent continues with the meaning of its activation. Just clarifying, you can't, just clarifying what track target does, and the order in which you climb with climbing gear and Vanguard, which is helpful, as well as describing the distance when using the grapnel launcher for climbing, which is all fine. And then there's just a question for narrative play, which doesn't really apply to match play. So nothing major there. For their errata, first we have the Saboteur's Detonate special ability. So this will be a going trend, but when making shooting attacks, operatives, each friendly and enemy within blue is a valid target, but when determining cover, so basically hits everyone. And then the more important one is, when you're placing the token, it has to be within black and visible to this operative. Because there's one question I asked. So one question I asked was, can you place a Saboteur mine through solid walls? Because technically it doesn't have to be visible. And does the blast affect targets it's not visible to, because it just says everyone within blue. So from this, also it's just to show they answer your questions if you put them in. So you now need to be visible, so you can't just phase a mine through a wall, but it will hit everyone through walls because it's an explosion, right? So nice to know. Then for the Incurser Mine Mayor, you ignore ballistic skill modifiers even if the target is out of action, which is actually pretty strong. I didn't think of that, so that's good to know. It means it's basically always hitting on twos, which is very good. And then the smoke grenades were changed to have the same wording as the Commando one. So until the end of the turning point, operative is obscured if every cover line crosses an area of smoke. It's pretty solid there. Next we have the Poor Blooded. Did they get a buff? No. Change the Diabolic's bomb to a ranged weapon because it had the melee profile. It's okay. Maybe these guys will be good one day. Then for the Wyrmblade, the new one is, for the purposes of the cult ambush, when an operative makes multiple shooting attacks from one shoot action, either the blast or torrent, does it apply to all shooting attacks or the first one? Applies to all of them. So it's a nice clarification. It makes blast and torrent weapons really, really strong. I mean, I know a lot of Wyrmblade players are now like, oh, back to the shot cannon. I was like, I was using the shot cannon anyways. Great for applying stun, but it's a nice buff to an already quite strong kill team. Now for the Vet Guard Errata. So the only changes are basically just with the demolition mine, has to be visible, so nothing major there. And then nothing changed for the Confidant. It's just nothing changed with the Errata. It's just an old document. So for Novitiates, Acts of Faith, Faithful Blessing. So you change it to when a Novitiate operative is fighting in combat or making a shooting attack, or a shooting attack is being made against it in the roll attack dice step or the roll defense dice step, or of that combat or shooting attack, you can reroll one of your attack dice or defense dice respectively. Basically clarifying the timings when you can reroll dice using Faithful Blessing. Why this is important is because it makes Hunter Clade completely crap on Novitiates, which is I'm happy with. I think they deserve the pain. But that's the only clarification. And to be fair, it's actually pretty good. So it's nice that Games Workshop have done this. Then for their erratas, effectively, well-designed commentary, if an enemy operative is incapacitated at the end of a turning point due to Inferno tokens, does it count to Perjured Flame? No, it must be the attacks that incapacitate them, which is quite a nerf to that tack up, but it's fine. At least it was clarification. And then question, if an action is interrupted, can additional active faith be used during that interruption? For example, if I use an active faith during an Novitiate's activation and a Phobos stream track targets it, can I perform another act of faith? No, you can only perform acts of faith between the start and end of an activation, before, during, or after. So it's good at clarifying interruptions, although it doesn't clarify the poor thing for Phobos Strike Team, where let's say you're moving with a conceal order in the open. Phobos goes, track target, I switch to engage, and I'm going to overwatch you. You play blinding aura to their shooting attack. They can't shoot you, they can't shoot anyone else, and they're stuck on engage and they can't track target again. They can overwatch after, but just poor Phobos Strike Team. Rip in peace. For the Legionary Errata, we have nothing, so no need to worry there. And for the designer's commentary, when using the Disgusting Vigor ability, can arrow attain a successful normal save as a result? Cover as a crit save instead? Yes, this must be decided before the defense dice are rolled, however. And then can Malignant Aura, which is the ploy that reduces the defense characteristic of an operative within blue, does it affect invulnerable saves? Yes, because of how it's worded, which is a very powerful clarification, but it makes sense. And, you know, it's just another good toolkit in the Legionary Nurgle player handbook, basically. So for Commandos, Skulk About has been errated. So change this. You can retain one successful normal save without rolling as long as you have a conceal order, regardless of any rules that treat the operative as having an engage order, e.g. vantage point. This also helps for the Tyrannid lurk ploy. So basically means as long as you have a conceal order, you're retaining one additional dice. Really good stuff against like Pathfinders and stuff. Just a useful clarification and actually a little buff. So great for the Commandos. Then for the Corsair Voidscarred, the Fallow Chew action has been errated to say within heavy terrain because heavy doesn't exist. So that's a nice clarification there. And then nothing here. This is all old, nothing new. So now we're on to the core rules. This is the juicy part, everyone. So we've got the designer's commentary. The only new stuff is an operative visible to itself? Yes, this is hugely important. It's one I've asked quite a lot. Very, very useful. Opens up a lot of things and helps clarify stuff because you can have been within range of yourself in the rulebook, but there was nothing about being visible to yourself. Next, we have, do you have to declare the use of all rerolls before the dice are rerolled? No, you can see the result of a reroll before deciding on a different reroll. This is something I asked again. Very, very strong. So effectively, instead of rerolling all your dice at once, like in most of their other game systems, you get to reroll dice one by one. Now, when does this come into play? For example, you're a Novitiate player, you want to reroll dice one by spending Acts of Faith to try and minimize how much you spend, or you've got Relentless and you're trying to trigger like Rending, like on Gene Stealers, or you're just trying to fish for crits in general. You can choose now how to reroll one by one in whatever order you like, instead of having to do them all at once. So this is actually a really important clarification that I think a lot of people will miss. Then you've got rules. Sometimes rules require you to roll adjusters if you're fighting in combat. Is the target considered to be fighting in combat too? No. Is combat support applied? Yes. Can the rules that take effect when the target is incapacitated can be used to Legionary Unending Bloodshed? Yes. This differs from question 1 because the target is still incapacitated combat even though it wasn't fighting in the combat itself. So, I mean, it's good they've clarified it, but it's really strange. Really strange. I bet it kind of makes sense just when, they're striking you once for free, you know, that kind of thing. But it's kind of a slight buff to especially the Corsair Voidscarred Shade Runner, because now the slicing attack can now hit on 2s with Relentless. So yeah, pretty good clarification and important clarification there, although very complex in a way, especially if you're not a regular competitive player. Then you have some rules such as the Phobos Strike Team's track target action interrupt an activation after an enemy operative performs an action. If it's the last action of an activation or even the last action of the final activation at any point, can you still be interrupted? Yes. So I guess people were arguing, you're trying to track target after I finish activate, it's the end of the game. You can't, like end of the turn. So that's a nice important clarification, probably future-proofing themselves for similar effects. And then question, is an operative equipped with the weapons it can use some psychic powers? For instance, can psychic powers be upgraded with rare equipment in the core rulebook? No. Note that this means being injured won't affect that weapon's characteristics. So, what Games Workshop have done is an unintentional Games Workshop classic. They've answered the question, but now they've answered it in such a way that now another question has to be answered. So now, psychic powers don't degrade, which is, okay, that's actually another buff to psychers. The main problem is, does now this apply to upgrade attacks, like from equipment points? And it's like, you would go, no, everyone would go no, But now, because this FAQ has been answered in such a way, Games Workshop now has to answer in the next FAQ, can attack actions from equipment be like injured, you know, be degraded? And the answer would be yes. But because they've answered the question in such a way, now that question has to be asked. It's funny, but actually really important for psychic powers, just funny. Next, we have some Spec Ops stuff, which I won't really cover because it's for Spec Ops narrative play. Now we have some important Octaria stuff. For the scrap pile terrain feature, how far is an operative treated to move when performing a scramble over or charge over, e.g. for a Rubric Marine's All Is Dust ability? The distance it has travelled from the start to the end of that action. So what it means, what slow teams were doing, they were using Octarius to kind of catapult themselves forward, which is fine, but it does mean the like rubrics just got shat on, because what they would do is like you would go, oh, I'll scramble and then dash because I'll move blue with my dash, and scramble's just a scramble. But now you have to measure out. It actually makes scrambling probably worse for Rubric Marine players, and it's just an odd nerf. I get where they're coming from, but it feels rough. And then you have the scrap pile terrain feature. For operatives that perform normal free moves or charge actions, can they do the scramble over or charge over actions instead? For example, the Wyrmblade Locust. And the answer is yes. That's actually a nice buff for the Wyrmblade, which is weird. So they wanted to buff that. But if you can get a free charge action, you can now scramble charge instead, which is very, very strange. It's just like Games Workshop was like, I love you both equally, Warp Coven and Wyrmblade. And then secretly like, Wyrmblade, I love you more. But that's it for the FAQs. Overall, pretty good. Just some funny interactions. Now, we get to the core rules errata. Probably the biggest core rule errata. Change the bullet points to read, for vantage point, the operative cannot use the floor of the vantage point to be obscured. The operative cannot use part of the vantage point's terrain feature that is lower than the operative to be obscured. So what this now means is technically on stuff like boards that use the Minotaurium container or count the whole floor as heavy or light, you now basically have permanent conceal if you're silent, like if you're concealed and then you can fire silent, because you can now claim cover from the floor, which in my opinion makes sense. It's the problem of Games Workshop answering a Discord question. And what do I mean by a Discord question? Because basically most people on Discord don't really play the game, in my opinion. They're either like locked into TTS or never really play. And these questions they keep asking, never seen come up in real play at all. So there was this thing like, if you're not actually flush to the light cover on a vantage point, people are arguing, if I'm shooting from below you, even if you have a conceal order, you may be within black of the wall providing light cover on the vantage point, but I'm shooting from the floor, so that light cover is below you, so you ignore it, so I can shoot you even though you're concealed. So now they've asked that, and now Games Workshop has done this. A lot of, well, like the London scene is kicking off a lot. I mean, I think they've already banned this FAQ, like this particular FAQ. And while I disagree with this vantage point change, because it doesn't make too much sense, like Games Workshop always tried to clarify it, but then unintentionally made the rule worse. I don't think people should just out and out immediately ban it, because Games Workshop won't change this if people just go, oh, well, we used it in our events. We didn't see much of a problem. We know a lot of tournaments banned it themselves, but we have no evidence of it being actually bad. And it's still a bad ruling, but I would say test it out for one event, then ban it. Like, at least see it in action instead of, like, doom theorizing. But it's really not good. Like, I'm guaranteeing you in the next FAQ, well, because these people who asked the vantage point question are now asking like, hey, what if I use trigonometry for my Aquabus on my Hunterclade to make sure my opponent shooting me from most angles is obscured? I'm obscured against them, but they're not obscured against me. Like I can see Games Workshop putting like something crazy like oval bases are banned, or the Aquabus can never benefit from being obscured, just to like minimize these questions, because it's like you're effectively asking people to play trigonometry with Kildeen for cover lines. It's crazy. But this FAQ is really weird, because now some TOs are arguing like floors don't have traits, so people are arguing floor isn't even cover anymore. It's neither light or heavy, it's just a floor. And then it's like, what if you're shooting over a balcony? Does that rule still apply? Very confusing. But as I said, it's a Discord question by people who don't really play the game or only play in like TTS, Tabletop Simulator, where it's highly clinical and unrealistic to the main game. But that's pretty much it. Overall, this has been a fine FAQ and errata. Like, they've actually clarified a lot of important things, which is nice, and they've tidied up a few interactions like mines phasing through walls, not just for the Phobos strike team, but for other teams as well, which is nice to see. And you've got some stealth buffs there, as well as some slight nerfs too. Overall, really good. The biggest downside is the vantage point question. Like, that is just going to confuse so many people. And even the psychic power one, even though that's not huge, it now means Games Workshop has to answer if equipment attacks degrade as well. They will, as in they should degrade, but now it's a question that has to be asked because of the way they answered that FAQ. But overall, it's pretty good. I still like this, that they're still regularly updating the game and keeping track of everything. I'm disappointed this FAQ was delayed by like a month or something, because it's August, mid-August, and it was supposed to come out like July or June or something. Like, there's drama behind that as well from what I've heard, but it is what it is. At least we're getting regular updates. But that's pretty much it from me. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the video and the changes. Are you happy with the FAQs? Is there anything you don't like or you think is silly? Or whatever, just let me know. I'm always happy to hear feedback. And if you want, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll just quickly shout out to my patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Sam, Tarun, Kenzie, John Thomas, Dave, Average Joe 27, and Adzik. And then for my Veterans of the Crit, I have Sam, Joe, and Confucius. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll be back with a video on Saturday, and then I'll be back with some more Kill Team stuff soon. The tier list is coming next week. It was supposed to come this week, then I had to do reviews, then I had time to do the stat show for July, and then this FAQ dropped, so I needed to get the FAQ out. But yeah, sorry about the delays, guys. I'll be back with more Kill Team, well, with more videos soon, but until then, keep rolling crits, no matter what the FAQ may tell you.